All right, let's start up by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem, Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. All right, the name of this one is This System is a Trap. And pretty much this lesson was inspired
in the form of
by a video I was watching earlier, the Elder Yashwamba, News and Prophecy, Technology, and the Forbidden Fruit of the Serpent. And, he was going in, on the whole system. And how everyone pretty much is hooked to their iPhone or their phone in general, smartphone. And that's how, and pretty much some people just can't function without it. You have some people, I'm sure, that their whole life is that phone. And if they would ever lose the phone or lose the privilege of using it, they're probably off themselves. They'd rather be dead than not have that particular technology. And this is pretty much what Esau has done, got everyone used to a particular way of life. And it's been gradually, because back in the 80s and 90s, there weren't really phones like that. There were phones, but you had to be well-to-do to have a phone. Now, today, everybody and their grandmother got a phone. You have homeless people that have phones. And this was all set up on purpose because that phone would be one of the things that would help navigate, the New World Order in the direction that it's to go. Now all kind of stuff is going through my head right now. But what I want to do real quick is, matter of fact, let me just write this down. Okay. Salaki for that. So what I did was just for the hell of it, on ChatGPT, I typed in, will the New World Order enslave the entire planet? I meant to put planet. I put PLNET. The idea of a New World Order, NWO, enslaving the entire planet is a popular conspiracy theory. And see, this is the thing. When these devils, when something is true, they got to put labels to it to be able to dispel it. All right, like the scriptures speak about the accuser of thy brethren, which goes back to the Greek word katagoreo. And what Esau is good at, he likes to categorize things. He cannot function unless he can categorize something. If he can't categorize it, then if he can't make sense of it, then he doesn't know what to do with it. And this is why everything is always, whenever anything is true, they'll put a label to it, and pretty much that's pretty much how they do, how they run the world. They'll put a label and put a negative thought to that label, and then put that on people whenever they say something that's true that they don't like. Boom, conspiracy theory. Back in the days, communists, so on and so forth. So it says, not a fact-based or evidence-supported prediction about the future. And it is fact-based, and there is evidence today, because so-called conspiracy theories from the past have spoken about a new world order, new world government. It spoke about, they showed on the back of an American dollar bill, an Egyptian pyramid, and the Latin terms new world order. Pretty much, what's that all about? What is that all about? If there's no such thing as a new world order, why is there? That's a question that had came in my mind, which I was going to ask ChatGPT. If the New World Order is not real, if it's a conspiracy theory, what is it doing on the back of a dollar bill? Why? For what? For what purpose? See? So, I'm interested to see what that says. So it is fact-based, and there is evidence, and it supports what these so-called conspiracy theorists from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up until the present have been speaking about, because now we see those same exact things happening on a world scale. It says, a prediction about the future. Here's a breakdown of what you should know. What is a New World Order theory? It is the belief that a secretive, powerful group of elites, often described as globalists, bankers, politicians, or tech leaders, right? This is more of a newer addition because of the phase or the way that technology is going. Tech leaders back then, it was pretty much just the globalists or bankers, through pretty much governments and the politicians in these different governments passing legislation, for their agenda to prosper. All right. It says the tech leaders are working to establish a centralized, authoritarian world government. That's exactly what they're doing. This is why the whole world is moving into a digital direction. Now it's seeming like certain parts of the world are not in compliance. They're not down with with American system. They're not down with the whole way that the economy is going, so on and so forth. But yet everyone on the planet, every nation on the planet that's of any major significance or importance or has something to trade or to buy, they're all going digital. And there's no coincidence. It was like 130, 134 nations that are going digital. Some of them are in the phases of it, some of them in the final stages, some of them in the beginning stages, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, everyone is moving in that direction. Why is that? Because when you transfer everything online, make everything digital, that will centralize everything, bring everything to one central location to be able to be governed. And then just like if you have the internet, right? You cannot, like if you go to your home, right, and you don't have Wi-Fi, even though you have the phone, you cannot access your phone. You cannot access the your apps or whatever the case may be. And in a lot of cases, your television, if you don't have Wi-Fi. All right, so that's a form of control, and that's exactly what they're doing. With this modern day technology, is moving everything in the direction of control and making people, deceiving people into believing that they really need it. See, and this is just to fulfill their goals, right? It says the theory often claims this will involve surveillance, which it does. From back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s to the present, would you say that there's a whole lot more surveillance worldwide than there was back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s? And if you say no, then you're a retard. You must have just crawled from up under a rock. Right? Loss of freedoms. Is there not a loss of freedoms? Are not people losing their freedoms every day? And for the sake of safety, right? It says digital currency control. And this is exactly where it's going, digital currency control. Because once everything is digital, and it's just like, there was a point where once the dollar became the Federal Reserve or became the world reserve currency, nations, in order to really function in the new system or the new world order at the time, had to trade their money into dollar bills in order for them to be able to, do business, with America and make money. This is no difference. And this is why everything is going digital. It says depopulation, and we see that happening. See a lot of people drop because of that juice. They had the Georgia Guidestones up until recently. They took them down. They destroyed them. Why? Because they already got to the phase that they needed to get to begin that downward spiral of depop. With the ulation, put it all together. All right. It says, or even micro C-hipping. See? So all of these things are actual facts. They call it theories. But when you look at the world scale, the direction that the world governments are going, the direction that the monetary systems of the world are going, everything is going digital. And it's not a coincidence that they have the technology, to be able to connect these devices to all of your records, and that it will be one of the main things used in buying and selling. And this is the slow introduction, going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and especially when they started bringing out those credit cards. This was a slow progression into get everyone to be on board with this form of payment. And as each year or each decade goes by, the technology becomes greater and greater, and the control, begins to be begins to be more centralized. All right. So before we read on, let's get this one quick precept, just so you could, for those of you newer members, like why are you speaking about the digital currency and all that? Well, it's part of the MOTB, the mark of the beast. All right. I was just about to get a precept, and it just kind of escaped me for the moment. Just bear with me. I was just about to get a precept too. Oh, Barakateh Bashim El Shai. The book of Daniel, chapter 12, and verse 4. It says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end." So the words in this book were sealed. And it wasn't until the end, the very end, where we're at right now, going back to mainly into the late 60s, when the elder Abba Bivens was on the scene, and the Lord gave him the revelations that he gave him, and the men that he set up. To this very day, we have that legacy to look back on, and that's when the words of the book started to really open up, because the Bible's been around for a long period of time. And from the time of, when we go back 2,000 years ago, or during the time of the New Testament, after it was written, people didn't understand the prophecies that were written. It wasn't until this time, especially the book of Revelation. And there's no one on the planet Earth that can understand the book of Revelation like the Israelites. I'm beginning with the Great Millstone and others that break the scriptures down correctly. There's never been any other church. Now you have these fly-by-nighters, that have been watching the Israelites and getting their game up and going into the book of Revelation, because they've viewed the videos that brothers have done breaking down Revelation, and then they'll use certain things, and then they'll add other stuff. You see? It says, "Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." And this is where the tech era comes in. All right? So going back to this, micro C-hipping, that's new technology, which didn't exist 2,000 years ago. But the Apostle John saw it in his vision, and he described it as best as he could with the language and the examples that he had back then. So it says, why it's not credible? There's no solid, verifiable evidence for a coordinated global plan to enslave humanity. So why is the world going into a digital system? Why the push for digital system? Why are all the nations on the planet Earth going digital? Because remember, Russia isn't doing what America's doing. China isn't doing what America's doing. Iran is definitely not doing what America's doing. I know y'all remember that. My man, Chief Ephraim, But the fact is that all of these nations are going in the direction of a digital currency. You see? It says the theory often relies on misinterpreted documents, fear-based speculation, and linking unrelated global events. But the global event is just that. It's a global event. Matter of fact, let's show you that. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 3, and it's all in the book, but it's codified. And you're not going to understand it unless the spirit of Yahweh Bashem El Shai opens your mind. Revelation 3:10, because thou hast kept the word of my patience. And this is key, because the word patience means to suffer. And there's going to be hard times, very hard times coming. and it's going to put all of us, right there on Front Street. And the only thing that's going to deliver us is if the Spirit of the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai continues to guide us all the way to the end. It says, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation. So the Lord said, because we kept the word of his patience, we caught hell, we went through the trials and tribulations, and we held on no matter what. He was going to relieve us or keep us from the hour of temptation, which this hour of temptation is the final part of this hour of temptation is when they make the micro-CHIP mandatory. And that the world, in order to operate in this new system, will have to receive this mark. And if they don't, they'll be put out. But eventually, there are going to be situations where the ones that resist, the elect that resist, are going to be put to death. They're going to be beheaded for this word, and for resisting. So that shows you that at first the majority of people are going to be deceived to receive it. It's going to be voluntary, but after a while, once they got a certain number of people already micro-CHIP, then they're going to push it to be mandatory. And that's where the even further greater persecution is going to come. All right, upon those that fear the Lord. It says, which shall come upon what? All the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. And when you look up these two words here in the Greek, the word world and the word earth, they both go into the whole entire planet Earth. The word world here is oikomene. When you look up the word world in English, in the New Testament, you have different Greek words that break down the English word world. And you have to know which world you're talking about to be able to break down the context of what that scripture is saying. This particular scripture is talking about the whole entire planet. And it's talking about the whole entire planet in a sense of anywhere on the planet where this new digital system or the system that we see today of the internet, is prevalent. So the word there is oikomene, which means the inhabited earth. It says here the portion, the Roman Empire, that's not what it's talking about. The whole inhabited earth, the world, see? The inhabitants of the earth. So in that case, they're correct on that, on the word oikomene. Okay? And it goes, it's a root word, feminine participle, present past, passive of oikeo, to dwell, right? Oikeo, to dwell. And then you also have the word oikos. Oikos is home or house. And then as noun by implication of gay, which is geo or earth. All right. Yeah, and that word oikeo, oikomene, is house, dwelling, pretty much. See, oikos, house, household, home. So oikomene pretty much should be house, dwelling. So the whole entire planet Earth. Then when we go back, you have the word gay or gi. Then you have the word geo, geography, the writings of the earth. The word earth there, gay or gi, geo, right? It says arable land, the ground, the earth. The earth as a whole. This is really what it means, the earth as a whole. The earth as opposed to the heavens. The inhabited earth, see? The abode of men and animals. So that's showing you that this hour of temptation is going to be upon the whole entire planet, which shows you that it's a world order. All right? It's a world order. So those are global events, and they are related because all of these nations are going digital. Global politics are incredibly fractured and decentralized. Coordinated world domination would require far more unity than currently exists. Yeah, but once they get everything, online, then those that control, those that have the control of the control panel, so to speak, are going to be the ones that's going to dictate who can come in and who can stay out. You see? So what's really happening? Governments and corporations do exercise growing power, right? And this is why you have lobbying going on in Congress, which are these different corporations that pretty much are paying these politicians to pass legislation that's favorable to these corporations, these large corporations, because the corporations, which are owned by the bankers, are the ones that's manipulating the economies and the governments of the world into this new world order, because that's what they wanted the whole time. That's why it's on the back of a dollar bill. Come on, man. And then this is the place where they eventually, after they set up the Federal Reserve, eventually about 30 some odd years in the future, what they do, they got the world reserve currency status, which moved the world into being in debt to the system that the international bankers set up. For what purpose? Because they understand that debt can turn into slavery if you don't have the funds to pay. See? Especially through technology. And that's exactly what they're doing. Finance and data, right? Because it's all about technology, it's all about finance, and it's all about data. And they're interchangeable, or they're all intertwined, should I say, one with the other. That's why in Revelation 13, right? When you go to Revelation 13 and you look up the word mark, right? In the 16th verse, 17th verse, right? And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. When you look at this word mark, because it's, once again, the English word mark, when you go through the New Testament, you're going to have this word mark that appears several different times. Sometimes it's the name Mark. Sometimes it's talking about one thing, and sometimes it's talking about something else. It depends. Like when you read in the book of Revelation 16 and 17, where it speaks about mark them which cause divisions, it's a total different Greek word for the word mark there than it is here in Revelation 13 and 16. And this is why it's important for you to look up your words. So when we look up that word mark, right, scroll down. Right there, boom, you have the word charagma. And charagma is the actual device that they're going to push, insert into somebody's right hand, left hand, any part of the body, their head, whatever. Right? See, a scratching or etching, an example, stamp as a badge of servitude, because this is what they want. This is why they're not concerned with these bankers are not concerned with collecting the national debt. Why? Because the national debt is set there to get everyone so indebted that when they bring in this new, financial system, and they tell people, look, if you accept this, then we can cut down your debt. You won't be as in debt, or we can wipe your debt out, depending on what deal they work out with you. And they understand that debt leads to slavery. They're not stupid. They've seen it time and time again. All right. It says, or sculptured figure, statue, right? Because you take a sharp instrument and you cut into wood or into stone or glass or whatever the case may be to make these different, idols, statues, portraits, whatever. Now, when we go and we dig in further into this, right, you have the device, which is the charagma. Then you have the delivery system, which is the charax, which would be the N to the EEDLE, used to push the charagma or the microchip into, the person that's receiving it. All right, that would be the delivery system. All right, so it says sharpened to a point. And why is it sharpened to a point? Because that's what they're going to use. Just like when you sharpen a stake at a point and you drive it into the earth, because it's going to be a lot easier to drive a stake that's sharpened into the earth than it would be to just try to drive in a blunt, piece of stick into the ground. You most likely end up breaking the stick up more than you would if you just had it cut, sharpened at one end. And that's pretty much what this is set up for. So this would be the delivery system, right? And what will the delivery system have or contain in it? Well, that goes into the last part of the root word, which is grapho, which is where you get the word graph, which means to write. All right, to write. So pretty much grapho could be cuneiform, or grapho could actually be records, something that's recorded, not to be forgotten. And when we jump down here to 2 here, to commit to writing, see, things not to be forgotten, write down, record. So it's a record. So what is another word for record? Data. What is in the compute? What is in the computers, in the phones, in these micro CFs? Data, which are records. And this is why they want everybody online, because this data and this record is easy to trace. If it had a digital footprint to it, it's a lot harder to trace actual money, cash, dollars and all that, because they can't trace where you're spending them at, because there's no digital footprint like it is with this device. And this is why they want that, because they want it all, the this and the that. So you got it. So you got the charagma, which is the device. You have the charax, which is the delivery system, and you have the grapho, which is the data. You dig? So going back here, it says, what's really happening? They're telling you what's really happening. What's really happening is that the MOTB system is being pushed out there and played out there in plain sight. But because you have the handlers that don't want that information out, they're going to tweak things. And when you try to fact check certain things, they're not going to give you the right information. You see? Because the information that was readily available 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, now is harder and harder to find. Because these devils are making it harder and harder. And every time you have anything that pushes out information, guess what? They got their paws, their grimy rat paws on it, buying into it so that they can control it. Yeah. It's all about world control, world domination. Another scripture that goes into world domination is the book of Habakkuk. Let's go to that. We're going to come back, because this is getting juicy. Habakkuk 2:4. Behold, his soul, which is Esau's soul, which is lifted up with what? With pride, is not upright in him, because they're not righteous. But the just, meaning the Israelites, the elect, shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine. Now, what is wine? Wine is something that's used to inebriate your mind. You could relax your mind or inebriate you, right? But in this case, this particular wine is talking about his philosophies, his ways of thinking, his religions, so on and so forth. He transgressed by wine, because he's the one that tells you could do whatever you want to do. The laws are done away with. There's so many ways you can go with it. It says he is a proud man. This is another, detail, I guess, for lack of better words, of Esau. Neither keepeth at home. And you see that he doesn't stay home. Here it is, he done conquered the continent of America, from Canada all the way down to South America, and he's still going around the world conquering lands. Why? Because that's in his spirit to do that. Oh, that was so good. That was cucumber, celery, parsley, cilantro, and ginger. Woo! Good juice. Who enlarges his desire as hell. See, what is hell? Death, the grave. And the grave, in the book of Proverbs, it says that the grave is never full. So these devils are, unsatiable. Their greed is unsatiable. Their greed can never be, filled. You see, and is as death. Yeah, because death happens until the Lord comes back. Death is going to be in the earth. It's the sentence over all flesh. So just as sure as death is going to come, to the world until the Lord comes back, so is this devil going to continue on his quest. He's going to keep taking and taking and taking, even when there's nothing else to take, and cannot be satisfied. But here goes the main point: but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Why? Because this is the new world order. It's a world government, and that's what this is talking about. If you say, no, that's not what I'm talking about, that's your interpretation, well, guess what? You're blind. You can't see. You need to get some glasses like DMC. Gathereth, right? The word there is asap. 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 To gather, receive, remove, gather in. See? Collect. To gather an individual into company or of others. See? And that's what he's doing. He's gathering the world into company with others, lumping everyone together. Citizens of the world. You see? To bring up the rear. Oh, Lord. The pickler came to mind. To gather and take away, remove, withdraw, assemble, see? To be brought in or into association with others. See? So you get the idea. So he gathereth. So what is he gathering? It says, unto him all nations. See, call Gawayim. Call is all. Gawayim is plural for nations. This is Gawaya. This is the singular form of nation. Gawayim is nations. Okay? And heapeth, let's see what the word heapeth unto him. Quabatazah. To gather, assemble, same thing. To collect. See? So it's an assembly. So he's assembling the world. And it's no coincidence that, on the back of the dollar bill, here it is. You got an American dollar bill. Let's go to the $1 bill. One back of $1 bill. Show me the back of a $1 bill. Let's see if we can find a good one. I want to get one with this. Here we go. This is the one with the seal. Hopefully it's big enough. Let me see. Let me open it up. Let's see what is. We'll see what we got. Oh boy. Okay, let me try it again. Let me try it. Let's try that. And there we go. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, this is the back of a $1 bill. This is an Egyptian pyramid. If this is America, why is there an Egyptian pyramid on the back of a dollar bill? Think about it. Now, second part of this is why. What is this? What's this? What's this? Yeah, brothers. What's this? What is this? This is not English. This is Latin writing. Annuit coeptes, right? It's either announcing the birth or our enterprise has been crowned with success. So what is an enterprise that's crowned with success? Well, you have a banner at the bottom. Novus Ordo Seclorum. More Latin writing. New order of the ages or new world order. So what the hell is this doing on the back of a dollar bill if there's no such thing as a new world order? If, this is supposed to be America, why do they have an Egyptian pyramid And why do they have Latin writing on it? And then you have Roman numerals at the bottom here. And these Roman numerals all add up to 1776. And it's not July 4th, the so-called Day of Independence, 1776, but May 1st, 1776, which is the birth of the Bavarian faction of the Illuminati, which is over there in Germany. You know, Adam Weishaupt, and you know, and that whole situation, and where they established this what we're seeing today, you know, happening, this global thing happening worldwide that even ChatGPT is denying. Come on, man. Can't you see? Let me just go to just to keep that. All right, so let's go back here. So it's saying what's really happening? Yeah, what's really happening is that the prophecies of the scriptures are coming to pass. We have also a more sure word of prophecy. So it says governments and corporations do exercise growing power, as the scriptures said, especially through technology, as the scriptures said. We read it in Daniel 12:4. Finance, we just read it in Revelation 13. No, we didn't get the chance to read the 17th verse, but it says that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the MARK. And what? Data, which is what? These are entries into the computer system, the internet. It's information, data. Data is information. And that's exactly what these, you know, devices hold. They hold information. And what do they hold? They hold your medical records. They hold your driver's records, your finance, everything. Your everything that you have, everything that makes you who you are, is within that micro chip. And guess what? Oh, you know, they only have so much room in it, yeah. But that micro chip, right, that you have, when you go to the grocery store, let's say, and you put it in one of them scanners, what does it do? It reads that device. So that device can also, because you have a phone, right, and you can add stuff to your phone. You can plug your phone into your computer or your laptop, PC or whatever, and add more stuff to it. So pretty much they'll have records on you, and this is the beginning of you, you know, of your personal history. If they need anything else, they could just link that to the bigger computer and get the rest that they need. All they need to be on there is just who you are, you know, your finances, you know, and certain certain information that they need to find out who you are, identify you. You don't have to have everything on there. And then Bishop Nathaniel is looking very, very stupid right now. You know? Because he said years ago, can somebody tell me what the RFID has to do with buying and selling? And this is what's been pushed out there. So, but this is what happens when you think you're smarter than the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. This is what happens when, you know, you don't take heed to your teacher, Elder Apostle Tahar. You should have learned. All these years, this man's been teaching his word, you know, and saying things through the Spirit and coming to pass. You should have been on board by now. But we understand that dream that you had, you know, because you were dead wrong about the Cornelius thing. When you kicked us out of school, now you're teaching it. You're dead wrong about the time of Jacob's trouble, and now you're teaching it. So somewhere in your mind, something should you know, alert you and say, you know what, you know, Apostle Tar, you're not going to grace him and respect him with the title of apostle. You know, he's been right about the Cornelius thing. He's been right about, you know, about the time of Jacob's trouble. He's been right. He's every time he brings something up at One West, you know, it always was confirmed to be right. See? But this is what happens when pride is in the way. And if he happens to be one of the elect, the Lord's going to remove them demons off him, and he's going to realize, and and that's that. And there's nothing anyone can say, because to the Lord, you either stand or you fall. That's it. No one else can change the outcome of that. It says issues like mass surveillance. Come on, man. What's happening? There are issues of mass surveillance. That's one of the things they want to do. It says here, it says one of them is in the book of Jeremiah 5. And I hope I can remember the other one. Okay, so let me come back here. Jeremiah 5 and 6. Wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them. This is talking about the nations. And a wolf of the evening shall spoil them. A leopard shall watch over their cities. And Esau is like what is when you don't understand the true nature of a leopard is a cat, right? That is very vigilant. And he's watching everything. And he moves in plain sight of other animals. And they can't see him. Because he's just that stealthy. This is what Esau does. He has surveillance everywhere. Scripture said that the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. So a leopard shall watch over their cities. Everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many and their backsliding are increased. Right, because when you go back to the ancient Babylonian Empire, that's what happened. Or should I say the Neo-Babylonian Empire. That's what happened to Jake. In today's terms, you do have Esau is like a leopard watching the cities, surveillance. Why? Let's go to Isaiah 14. And 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, which they have. You got the planes, you got your space shuttles, you got your space stations, you got your helicopters, drones, so on and so forth. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. Right, that's why you have your satellites and all that up in orbit. It says, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, which represents the Israelites, in the sides of the North America. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, which you have. I will be like the Most High. What is one of the traits of the Most High? He's all-seeing. He sees everything. The eyes of the Lord power, matter of fact. 10,000. Come on, man. Some bullshit. Let's see if should come up this way. All right, Sirach 23:19, which is Ecclesiasticus and the Apocrypha. Such a man only feareth the eyes of men, and knoweth not that the eyes of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding or looking or seeing all the ways of men and considering the most secret parts. So pretty much the Lord sees everything. And this is what Esau's trying to do. So here it is. They're saying, no, there's no evidence. There's no supporting evidence. There's no, what was the other word they used? There's no evidence. There's no solid verifiable evidence for a coordinated global plan to enslave humanity. What was the other one? Damn, there was another one. And I believe one of them said data, if I'm not mistaken. Well, anyway, issues like mass surveillance, that's what's really happening. That's what these corporations are doing. Erosion of privacy, that's what they're doing. Why? Because you as they say, you will own nothing and be happy. Authoritarianism, they're pretty much pushing everything to control every aspect of the people's of the world's lives. And corporate influence are real concerns, but they stem from many competing interests, not a single unified conspiracy. But the point is that it's all going in that direction. What was the purpose of the Federal Reserve? The purpose of the Federal Reserve was to get the bill passed to then enslave the rest of the world through that system, to get the whole world together as one. And that's what we see happening. With the FRNs, that's what they do. They eventually got the whole world to have to trade in that money in order to make any money, in order to be able to function in the system. They pretty much crippled the world. If they didn't go through the dollar bill, they would have been asked out. And once they get the system online, whoever controls the system controls everything. You see? It says public awareness, laws, and activism often push back on overreach. And that's exactly what's happening. But what has the pushback and the protests and all that, what has that changed? Are they still going forward with their agenda? Yeah. So did it change their agenda? No. So it says why people believe it. Big scary events, wars, pandemics, economic crashes naturally create anxiety. People often seek simple explanations for complex global problems. The idea of a secret enemy provides a sense of clarity or control in uncertain times. So I'm going to just put this one. Does the Bible speak of a secret council working to enslave humanity? The Bible does not directly describe a secret global cabal working to enslave humanity in the modern sense that conspiracy theories like the New World Order suggests. See? But this is exactly what's going on. And they do have a secret cabal or secret global organization. And then they even give you some of the scriptures. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? However, it does include themes. Listen good, because they're telling you without telling you. However, it does include themes of hidden evil, corrupt rulers, and spiritual deception that some interpret as pointing towards such ideas. And that's exactly what it does, or what it's doing. Here's a clearer breakdown. Biblical passages about secret or evil plots. Some verses do speak of wicked leaders or secret plans, but mostly in a spiritual or moral context, not a political conspiracy. And that's a goddamn lie. It's a political conspiracy. Yeah, of course, they're trying to deny the Most High, push the Most High out of the way, but also it's political. That's why governments are involved. It's economic. Psalms 2:1 and 2. Why do the nations rage and the people imagine people's plot in vain? The kings of the earth, this is a different version, set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, which is Yahweh and Yahweh. This referred to earthly rulers opposing the Most High's authority, not a global conspiracy. That they're pushing a part of the rebellion or opposing opposition of the Most High's authority is to get everyone micro-C-hipped so that they can be enslaved to them forever. So it is a global conspiracy. Psalm 64 and 2 to 6, because this is the scripture that I had in mind when I first asked this question. Talks about the secret plots of the wicked and people who hold fast to their evil purpose. It emphasizes moral corruption and hidden evil, not necessarily world domination. And that's what they're doing. They're corrupting people morally, and they're pushing everyone into a digital age. Ephesians 6 and 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This is often interpreted spiritually, and it's not just spiritually. It's spiritually, but you also have physical rulers on the planet, talking about demonic forces, not human conspiracies. It's talking about also about human or Edomite conspiracies. Let's go to that. Let's go to Ephesians 6 and 12. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Because the rulers are the ones that have pulled the curtain, so to speak, over the world, pulled a veil over the world. Because when the Edomites, so-called white men, got back into power during the time of the Renaissance, the very first thing they did was go on a deception campaign. That's what they're good at. They're good at deception. They're good, at destroying. They're good at everything evil and wicked. Right? So now when we look up the word rulers, right? It's a compound word, rulers. The word there is cosmokrator. Cosmos is another way you could say world, but cosmos in the world sense is an organization, an association, right? And the word krator is to rule. Cosmokrator is what? Rulers of the world. All right? Cosmos, world, adorning. See, it's an adorning. That's where you get the word cosmetics from, cosmeo. It's an arrangement. And then krateo means to rule. It says, Lord of the world, prince of this age, the devil and his demons. It's talking about Esau. That's why the Lord, Yahushua, said, the prince of this world cometh and has nothing in me. The prince of this world is talking about the Edomites, especially the ruling, so-called ruling class, the so-called elite, the bankers. All right? And of course, they're going to be behind the scenes. They're going to be secretive. But there's all kind of information out there that's exposing them. And then the rulers, right? The world rulers. And then it goes on to say what? Of the darkness. And the word for darkness is skotos, darkness, of night darkness, of darkened eyesight or blindness, metaphorically of ignorance respecting divine things and human duties. And this is what they're doing. They're trying to pull people, especially Jake, away from serving and worshiping the Most High through this new system that they're putting up in place. Because as the elder Yashwamba was saying, they want you they want Jake to turn their back on the Most High. I mean, I'm just merely paraphrasing, and get with them, because they're promising them eternal life here. But you have to compromise. You have to give up your beliefs. You have to give up your power, and you have to take this device. You see? So they're trying to be like the Most High, because that's what the Lord promised to us when the kingdom of heaven is established, everlasting life. But the difference is when the Lord gives it to us, we're not going to have to insert anything into our bodies, alter our bodies, the chemistry of our bodies, in order to, and probably more than likely probably have to keep taking a pill every so often or every day, to keep that system working. No, that system, once the Lord changes us, the system is going to be perfect. You ain't going to need no maintenance. You ain't going to need none of that. And the accompanying ungodliness and immorality. That's what they're pushing. That's that golden cup in Revelation 17:5. Together with the consequent misery in hell. There ain't no such thing as hell. It's just a misery of being destroyed and the thermonuclear destruction. Person in whom darkness becomes visible and holds sway. So they are the rulers of the darkness of this world. To keep Jake, mainly Jake, blinded to what's really going on. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3, it says, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. Why? Because the gospel, which is the good news, is the deliverance. And the ones that are lost are not going to have it. So what's going to happen is they're going to be the ones that's going to be left in that blindness, because those were the spirits that were chosen to stay blind and not to be able to receive the knowledge of the truth of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Right? It says, in whom the God of this world, meaning Esau, because they're the ones that control, they're the ones that have the God-like power here on the earth, has blinded the minds of them which believe not. Right? And how did he blind their minds? By, the veil that he pulled over the world, and by the constant deceptions. Because remember, one of the main ways that the majority of the world is going to take this microseed is by way of deception. And that's why they want to push this thing faster and faster, because the internet is unraveling a lot of their stuff. It's showing too much information. And even Chat GPT is telling on them in certain cases. It says, of them which believe not, least the light of the glorious gospel of Yahushua, who is the image of the Most High, should shine unto them. Right? And if that happens, guess what? Jake will be delivered. But the Lord has certain ones of them that the Lord doesn't want. That's why he's going to allow them to stay in that darkness. Let's see what else we got here. So the book of Revelation is symbolic and prophetic, and it talks about a beast, Revelation 13, which is the EU and NATO, and you could throw America in there, often interpreted as a symbol of a powerful, oppressive, political, and religious system. And you have that. A powerful, political, and religious system. And they're going to push that. Their form of religion. The false prophet, which is the Roman Catholic Church, a deceiver who promotes allegiance to the beast. The MOTB, a sign of allegiance to this system, often misused in conspiracy theories. No, this is talking about, the device that's going to be used as a badge to operate in this system. While Revelation speaks of a future period of deception and global control, it's primarily about spiritual allegiance, not a literal secret government planning world domination. You're full of shit. Interpretation versus invention. Some modern interpretations blend biblical prophecy with conspiracy theory, often without clear scriptural backing, which we showed you the scriptures. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But this is what the devil has to do. He'll give you the truth, but then he got to slap you back to sleep. And by the end of you reading this, if you're not tapped into the spirit, you're like, yeah, see, I knew it was all BS. The Bible talks about evil, corruption, and spiritual deception, but it doesn't say there is a human-led secret organization enslaving the world. Yeah, because they would have destroyed the book, even though it's in there. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked. Well, how much plainer do you want it to be? Bible says evil rulers exist, right? Conspiracy theory claims a single secret cabal rules everything. Bible says spiritual deception is real. Political conspiracies are orchestrated by elites. A final time of tribulation will come. A new world order is forming now to enslave humanity. This all ties in together. The Most High is ultimately in control. That's right. Humanity is helpless before a hidden elite. No, humanity is, but the elect are not. You see? And like I said, Lord's will, I'm gonna type in the other question that I had. So let's leave you with this. Psalms 124. I love this chapter. Psalms 124, which is a song of David. If it had not been the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai who was on our side, now may Israel say, if it had not been the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai who was on our side, when men rose up against us, then they had swallowed us up quick. When their wrath was kindled against us, then the waters had overwhelmed us. That's dealing with the militaries of Esau, the police forces, FEMA troops. The stream had gone over our soul. Then the proud waters had gone over our soul. Right. So the Lord is going to hold Esau back. That's why it says, when the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. So there's going to be something that's going to happen to where it's going to push Esau back. Blessed be Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, who hath not given us as a prey to their teeth. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers, right? Because some of us will be caught up. I mean, some of us will be taken out, put to death, have our heads chopped off. Some of us will be grabbed up, locked up in these facilities, right? It says the snare is broken. See? So the Lord is going to break that. He's going to break certain brothers and sisters out of these situations. And we are escaped. Why? Our help is in the name of Yahweh Bashem Shai, who made heaven and earth. So this great time of tribulation is coming. And this system is a trap. Because all it's doing is just pretty much cornering people. It just keeps cornering them, guiding them with that proverbial carrot. Keep on, guiding them and pushing them into a corner, backing them into a corner to where they have very little options. Because at the end of the day, the New World Order is going to be no options. It's going to be mandatory. And that's why they suddenly, push this here and push that there and, get this stuff online, get the money online and digital currency. And once everything is in place, then they could bring the real deal, just like they did when the Federal Reserve Act was passed. There were certain provisions that they had to take out. But like Paul Warburg said, look, we don't care. We just want to get the bill passed. Afterwards, we can add the provisions. And that's what they want to do. Once they get the system in place, all bets are off. You see? So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.